This summer, a trial is scheduled in a local murder, and the details are pretty hard to believe. Tom Barlas Jr. is accused of stabbing his father to death. According to investigative records, he told police he thought he was killing Satan. This comes after the murder trial of teen Noah Crooks, who killed his mother. And then just last night, we took you to the courtroom for the appeal of Jordan Johnson. He killed his mother in 2008. All three cases all shook our area in recent years, and they all resulted in a defense of insanity in court. KINT News 3's Matt Bradley is in Studio 3 with a special report on what goes into that defense.
Thank you, Sarah. The thing that stood out most in yesterday's court hearing involving Jordan Johnson was when he was given the opportunity to address the judge, delivered a 9-minute statement that no one could understand.
I did not have it my way to be placed by that quam film telm lum. I need not be almighty in that way that film stem helm quam.
Jordan's friends have become familiar with this side of him. His attorney says it's a symptom of the same psychosis that led him to act out so violently in 2008. Often when crimes like that happen, we hear comments like, that person should have been locked up long ago. But as we're finding out, there is a lot more to it than that.
We find the defendant guilty.
6 years ago this month, Jordan Johnson was convicted of murdering his own mother and was sentenced to life in prison. But it was a long journey to get to this point. In the beginning, friends say there was no sign of what was to come.
He was a riot to be around. He was just so goofy and always liked to entertain people and have a good time.
Aaron Jacobson would know. His friendship with Jordan goes back to their days as classmates at Buffalo Center High School. He remembers Jordan as a guy who worked 2 jobs, paid the household bills, and would still spend what little he had left on his buddies. That made the changes he saw while they roomed together at the University of Iowa harder to watch.
Yeah, it escalated pretty quickly. He could be in the shower. He would think a question and the steam in the room would spell out the answer to him. All the fuses had been pulled out of the fuse box and smashed, taking the drumsticks and stabbing holes in the walls. I asked him why the antenna was broken, and he had said that essentially they were trying to control him through the radio waves. He started to think that his friends, his roommates, and me in particular were working against him. He was going to cut off our fingers and leave them around the house for people to find.
If someone is talking about wanting to hurt other people, it's amazing how often that happens. And people say, well, I didn't believe him.
Psychologist Dan Rogers has been called on some 500 times to examine defendants' mental health condition and testify on their ability to reason. While he wasn't involved in Jordan's case, he says when it comes to crimes driven by true insanity, there's something we all need to understand.
They saw things and heard things that nobody else would believe are true, and they acted on them.
Now, what Dr. Rogers wants us to understand is that people with a legitimate psychosis, hallucinations, they're hearing voices, they're living in a different reality, but they are fully living in it. They're experiencing it and acting on it. Think of it like this. If you were being chased down by a car and all you knew was it was real, you would jump out of the way. But no matter how real that car is to you, if you were hallucinating the whole thing, then to everyone around you, when you jump, you're jumping at nothing.
We were absolutely terrified.
Jordan's roommates were finally able to get him committed, and after only a few days of treatment, Aaron's old friend was back.
All of a sudden, you know, he was just like the guy I knew again. It was really exciting. We really thought things were going to be okay.
But Jordan got out a few days after that, and Aaron says he wouldn't stay medicated, so they drifted apart. That is until January 19th, 2008. That's the day Jordan attacked and killed Rita Seeley with the blunt end of a hatchet.
I never would have imagined that happening.
When did you turn yourself in for tonight?
Murder.
Of who?
My mom.
A few months later, Aaron would testify in the trial on his old friend's behalf.
Yeah, I guess I wanted people to understand that he wasn't a monster.
The defense tried to get the jury to agree that hallucinations and voices made it so that Jordan felt he had no other choice but to attack his mother, and that he did not know right from wrong.
And one of the things they're telling him is that he has to kill his mom.
The prosecution had a much different message for the jury.
Walks over to his mother and just goes to town on her, over and over and over again.
The jury sided with the prosecution.
I didn't understand that one at all. I didn't think there was even the slightest chance he knew the difference between right and wrong at the time. That never sat well with me.
They're no more responsible for that than a 2-year-old is.
Rogers says we'd be far better off judging cuts to the mental health system as harshly as we judge the criminals acting on their insanity.
We simply don't have a system to treat those people any longer.
Iowa has a very good system of mental health care.
As superintendent of the Independence Mental Health Institute, Dr. Bhaskar Davi handles some of the most severe mental health issues in the state. It's a level of treatment Jordan Johnson never received, but one that may have made a difference.
We are the provider of last resort, and really we provide the safety net.
Independence is one of 4 mental health institutes in Iowa. 100 years ago, this facility held more than 1,000 patients. Today, there's a waiting list for the fewer than 100 beds. Aside from a long line of budget cuts over the years, another big challenge for Davi is fighting the old perception and stigma of institutes like his.
Let's get out of here.
That old concept as portrayed in those movies is not real at this time.
Instead, a day in the life here is a fairly relaxed one, consisting of leisure time, mixed with treatment and learning how to control symptoms, finding the right medications. There's a school for those under 18, and patients dress in street clothes, and so do the caretakers. So if somebody's here on a tour or wants to walk along these quiet paths, or even play soccer on the front lawn, there'd be no way to pass judgment on the people they might see.
Mental illness is just a disease of the brain.
And he says fighting that stigma is so important. A more positive image of mental health might result in more people being willing to seek help, stopping a potential criminal from going that deep into psychosis.
So really mental illness is treatable, that the patients suffer some symptoms, but when those symptoms are in good control, the person is as functional as the person ever was and is as equal a member of the community as the person ever was.
That's all Aaron ever wanted for Jordan Johnson. He can only look forward now. These days, one of his jobs is to help the mentally ill. He attends to folks in Section 8 housing who need a hand with daily tasks. It's a career field he didn't plan to pursue, but 6 years ago, that all changed.
I think what happened with Jordan definitely made me more aware of mental health concerns and the fact that there are a lot of people that need help.
Now, throughout this story, we've been talking about people with a true mental health issue. That means something diagnosable, like schizophrenia. Dr. Rogers wants to make it clear, though, there is a big difference between psychosis and people who act out because of a character disorder, like a sociopath. He says they act intentionally, and their punishment should reflect that.
And occasionally, you run into someone who is just plain rotten or just plain evil. That happens, too. But not very often.
Well, if you or anyone you know is starting to notice signs of mental health issues, even things as simple as a deeper than normal sadness or unusual alone time, experts say to seek help. Often that means sitting down and describing your feelings with your family doctor.